And welcome back to the Slow Flowers Show. This is episode 569. I'm Deborah Prinzing, and thanks for joining me. My guest today is Krista Rossow of O Flora Flower Farm in Oregon's southern Willamette Valley. The tagline for O Flora Farm is Small Farm, Big Blooms, Oregon-grown. Krista and I met in person earlier this summer at the Slow Flower Summit in New York, but we're just a few hours away from each other by car. And when I traveled to Eugene, Oregon 2 weeks ago, I invited myself over for a tour and to record today's interview. I know you'll enjoy it. You'll hear Krista's fascinating story about her path to flowers, which involves a 15-year career as both a photography editor at National Geographic in Washington, D.C., and as a freelance travel photographer whose work took her to all 7 continents on the planet. Now, thanks in large part to being temporarily sidelined by the coronavirus pandemic and the pause on traveling to teach, guide tours, and take amazing photography, Krista is decidedly present and staying close to home on her Oregon cut flower farm. Let's jump right in and you'll hear the full, beautiful story. I'll share our sponsor thanks after the interview. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Slow Flowers podcast with Deborah Prinzing, and I'm on location at O Flora Flower Farm with Krista Rossow. Hi, Krista.
Hi, Deborah. Thanks for coming down.
Oh, it's so great this worked out. Thanks for saying yes.
Of course.
We're in Harrisburg, Oregon. So tell everybody where you're at, and then we'll talk a little bit about your business.
Okay, so I'm in Harrisburg, Oregon, which most of you probably don't know where that is, but you may have heard of Eugene. So I'm about 25 minutes from Eugene, and Eugene is about an hour and a half south of Portland in the Willamette Valley of Oregon.
I think you say on your business branding like lower Willamette Valley.
Yeah, southern Willamette Valley.
Okay.
Yeah, the Willamette Valley ends like around Cottage Grove, so about not too far from here.
But people know of this region as like a winemaking region as well. So agriculture is based in your whole environs.
Yeah, there's a lot of winemaking further around Eugene and then up closer to Portland around McMinnville. But where I am, which is Lynn County, we have a lot of grass seed farming. So I'm surrounded by a lot of barren golden fields that just were all cut for grass seed right now.
You commented on that, and one could think, oh, grass, how Americana or whatever, but you said it's not good for a diversified flower grower to be surrounded by this monoculture.
I found it particularly challenging just because I've noticed, this is my 3rd year growing, and I've noticed that when all of the fields, so I'm surrounded by thousands and thousands of acres of grass seed.
No joke. That's
no joke at all.
Wow.
Like thousands. And all of the fields get cut at the same time, and I've noticed that once the fields get cut, all of those pests, all of the insects that were in the crop, they have nowhere to go. They have nothing to eat. So guess where they come?
Wow.
So they come to my field. This year hasn't been as bad as previous. And then the next thing that happens is usually the fields get plowed. So way back in the day, they used to burn the fields. But now they'll plow them, and they plow them and plow them and plow them until it's a very, very fine powder.
Which is what, like permeating your
your atmosphere? You'll see haze for weeks and weeks.
Wow.
when they plow it and afterwards. And so I have dust devils that will come sweep over my field, and oftentimes one year I had really bad moles and field mice infestation because we also had a really weak winter that year, and so all of them came into my field, and suddenly my sunflowers were falling over left and right, and my gomphrena was just dead. So it's been a challenge.
I'd never heard that term before.
Dust devil? You haven't?
No, is it like obviously something from, I don't know, Kansas or?
I don't know where the term comes from, but yeah, it's like little tornadoes of dust, and so they just whip on through here and plow into my field and dust everything.
Well, you're showing, just by revealing all of this, well, 2 things. One is you work with what you have, right?
Yeah.
You grow on the land that you have available to you. So we'll talk about that. And the other is just like this determination to not let it take you down, like you're resilient and intrepid.
I try to be.
Yeah. Wow.
I admit there's moments where, when all those things are happening, it's really rough.
Well, with that backdrop of placing you here in the Willamette Valley and talking about the conditions, can tell us how big your farm is, and also like how would you describe O Flora Farm?
Well, I don't know how big I am acreage wise. I think I'm maybe a quarter of an acre or so.
I mean, you have 30-foot beds that you have by about 25 of them.
I have about at least total 16 60-foot beds.
Oh, 60-foot beds.
If we doubled that up. Yeah,
and
but
then,
I do grow a lot of 30-foot space.
And then you have the high tunnel, and you keep adding. It sounds like you have access to adding.
I've been adding
more land to grow on as time allows. Okay, but you're a one-woman show.
I'm a one-woman show mostly.
So kind of a microflower farm. And O Flora, is it O Flora Farm or O Flora Flower Farm?
O Flora Flower Farm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or Flora Farms is the handle I use on Instagram.
Oh, okay. That's where people can find you. How did the farm come to be? And I know people will find this very relevant because it's so timely of how the universe told you to start this flower farm.
Yeah. So in 2020, so before becoming a flower farmer, I was a full-time freelance travel photographer and photo editor. And so you can imagine in March of 2020, when the pandemic happened, I was about to be leaving on a trip, and that canceled, and was the first of many, many cancellations that I had.
You're the kind of person who had like the passport filled with stamps from around the world.
Yeah. I have the fat passport that is filled with stamps from many, many places. And I, by chance, had been taking the Florette online flower farming workshop that I had been gifted a few years prior and just never had time to take it.
Oh, wow. So you had the login and you just started watching the videos.
Well, I've been watching it over the winter a little bit, but then when I started losing my work and saw the pandemic on the horizon, I thought, you know what, it's time to, let's try it.
Let's activate this option.
Yeah, so in a kind of frenzy, I started ordering seeds and, trays, and I made my little grid with my plan and just like went for it and started with a CSA that summer. And now it's my third year, which is kind of crazy.
It's almost like you have this triple threat skill set, though, because you have the flower farming, but you are a trained journalist, both photography and writing, and now you're a floral designer and flower grower. So you can put it all together, and you are doing that on your website and on your Instagram feed. Your photos are just they're next level. So it's really fun to see how you've brought these two passions together.
During my first season, I think part of the reason I was able to get as many customers as I did and sell as many flowers kind of really without much of a plan was because I was able to photograph my products in a very attractive way. And I think by photographing to an elevated style, you can command a higher price, because many of us have the talent to grow beautiful flowers, put them together really well, but then when it comes to translating that, to showing it to your customer, especially if your customer isn't in person looking at what you're selling, it makes a difference. So
that is such a good point. It's like the difference between the quick iPhone photo in the farmer's market stall and kind of treating this like an El Decor photo shoot or something.
Right.
Getting in a luxury environment. So the online store that you mentioned, you would have images that would represent your CSA subscriptions, and then also like single arrangements.
Yeah, so I was listing specialty arrangements, and I would take pictures of them, and I even would I did a setup with the same kind of flowers, 3 different sizes, and photograph them using my hands for scale, so that people could understand the size and quantity that it would be in a bouquet. And then I was selling the CSA and also selling a la carte bouquets that people could get just once a week if they weren't subscribers.
Where did you set up a little studio here, or where were you shooting?
I shoot all over. There's different places, but I look for places where the light is even and out of direct sunlight, and then it's really about finding a nice background.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll use something solid like an old piece of mat board, or even like a painter's canvas can be nice. Or I have these stacks of drawers that hold all kinds of miscellaneous tools in the shop, and so I kind of like that as the background.
A little bit more like a vintage background or
Yeah,
something.
but I usually photograph them just being really cognizant of what the background is, so there's nothing distracting.
Because you want it to be about the flowers.
It's about the flowers, and then I always try to do a variety of images. So there's more of the full bouquet shot, there's the detail shot, and then I'll do horizontal and verticals, because I started forcing myself to photograph all of my subscriptions before I took them out, because I knew that I needed that material for Instagram and for selling to future clients. And it's been invaluable to have those on hand. And I just can't stress that enough.
Yes.
Is to build in time for every farmer and florist to photograph your work.
I mean, the discipline of that is going to pay off also, I would say, after a full year. Then you had a documentation of what was blooming when, and what your CSA contained every week of the season.
Yep.
Wow.
And then I also knew if I was repeating color patterns or flowers, I didn't want my customers to get too tired of any one thing in particular.
It's such a sensitivity that you have to think even about shooting vertical and horizontal, because I do think, now when I'm asking people for photography, for a blog post or for the website to go with the podcast or for Bloom Imprint, I sometimes think, why are they all vertical? Like then I have to put two verticals together to make a horizontal.
Right.
And
the base is tall. And the
right,
flowers are tall.
right, like on a WordPress site or something. And it seems like such a simple tip, but I hope people hear this and take a vertical and a horizontal.
Yeah. Well, that came from my photo editing days. So I worked at National Geographic Traveler magazine for 7 years as a photo editor, and so if I had
so you were receiving stuff from other photographers.
Yes, I was going through other people's work to curate their work to go into the magazine or into our iPad version at the time, and the website. So it was a lot of different formats, and it was also thinking about variety to be able to tell a story. And even when I put things on my Instagram, I do try to think about changing the pace of the images. So maybe it's a close-up image of a prepared bouquet on one, and maybe on the next it's a field shot, so that people aren't getting tired of seeing the same thing.
That's really interesting, because then at a quick glance on the grid, it's not this sort of monochromatic, that's not the right word, but just uniform, everything is the same composition. You're changing the composition.
I'm trying to,
and I love that. So the field shot versus the detail, maybe versus something that is more activity oriented, like your hands are in it or something.
Yeah, or a portrait of myself. I try to get in front of the camera too, because I like to know who I'm buying things from. To see people's faces. So I try to put myself in there every once in a while, just so people know who I am.
I think it's
connect.
good. That my pet peeve. I was telling you, we were talking about. We really want to get the flower photography workshop that Krista will do sometime soon. You heard it here first. So sign up for her newsletter so you can get on the list. When I teach the floral creative writing course, one of my biggest pet peeves are the people who only have their first name on their website, about page. It's like, no, okay, or just the we, the sort of royal we. So personalize it.
Yeah, because people connect with individuals and individual stories and.
Absolutely. Well, I asked you about your design, and I asked you, other than photography could come out of a journalism training or a fine art training, and you said you have studied fine art in a college setting. So when you did that at University of Oregon, what was your motivation? What did you think that you wanted to be, and how did you want that fine art degree to create a career for yourself?
Well, I originally wanted to do graphic design, and the classes were full. And I remember my advisor saying, well, why don't you start taking some photography classes? And once I started taking those, I took everything that I could, and then I also did bookbinding and letterpress and a lot of ceramics, but primarily I was focused in photography, and at that time it was not digital. at all.
It was darkroom, like,
oh yeah,
oh
it
my
was black and
gosh.
white darkroom. It was
Wow.
color darkroom,
Wow.
so printing from color, which is a whole different thing, and a lot of alternative process and medium format, large format. So it was very, very hands-on, which is something that, coming back to farming, I'm realizing how much that I've missed, because being
this
on the
is your
computer,
craft.
yeah, being
Like-
on the computer so much is, you know, nobody, does
Soul-sucking?
anybody really like that? I don't know.
Well, it's so interesting. Like, you have the skill set to do film photography, but do you even do that anymore, or is it just like the equipment has changed so much?
I don't do film. I think if maybe I got into a deep fine art project, I would potentially go back to it, but it's just the ease of, you usually end up scanning it anyways. That was,
I've heard
when
that.
I transitioned into digital, that was the way to go, because you were getting mediocre scans that then you worked on the computer anyway, so it
Interesting.
lost that tangible hands-on quality.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so I'm all digital now.
So from a BFA, did you get a BFA from?
I have a BA
Oh.
in Spanish and in fine art.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
a very random,
So perfect.
like a really random collection there.
So did the travel come in because of the Spanish?
Kind of, because I studied abroad. I studied abroad in London one summer, and then I studied abroad in Granada, Spain.
Oh wow.
And those were my first real being abroad moments, and I
With
I
camera
loved
in
it.
hand.
I had cameras then. I wasn't as into photography at that point. That was my sophomore year, and then when I went to University of Portland for a couple years, and then I ended at U of O, and that's when I really got into photography. And yeah, and then I just started traveling, I guess. After college, I ended up going to Germany for a year, and I worked as a waitress in an American military resort.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
a great life skill set.
Yeah.
That's got to come in handy somehow.
Yeah, it was like I had mediocre jobs out of college in Portland, and I was like, well, if I'm going to be a waitress here, why not go do that in Germany, and then I can travel on the weekends.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So
Wow.
I did that.
What led to this long career with National Geographic?
So after Germany, I came back to the States, and I ended up getting a job assisting at the Santa Fe photo workshops in Santa Fe,
Oh, I've
New
heard
Mexico.
those are pretty prestigious, right?
They are, and
Yes.
it's like a lovely, lovely place for anyone who's interested in photography to go. And I basically worked for them for a year and was just immersed in photography, like day in, day out. And, it was,
And all these like world-class photographers teach
yeah,
there, right?
yeah, and including National Geographic photographers. So that's where I first sort of met any Nat Geo people, and then ended up assisting with some National Geographic workshops in Spain and Scotland, and then I started doing helping on some seminars that they did throughout the States, and then I met the director of photography for National Geographic Traveler magazine and ended up getting a job there. I was debating going back to grad school and had taken a couple courses at U of O in photojournalism and got the job at Nat Geo, and so I moved
The
to
job became your graduate program.
yeah, oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I moved to DC, and I was there for 7 years, and I worked at Nat Geo the whole time.
Wow.
And then I got sick of being at a desk and wanted to be out there doing the travel more on my own. So I left in late 2013, and then from then until the pandemic, I had been traveling, photographing assignments. I've been editing books, editing magazine stories, and then teaching. So I travel primarily for National Geographic expeditions, and so anyone can go on a trip with Nat Geo on it.
You're not necessarily teaching professional photography.
No, I
Okay.
mean, no, not on those. I mean, there's sometimes somebody who's very advanced, but it's
Yeah.
just a lot of hobbyists, advanced amateurs,
People who love to travel.
people love to travel, people who just show up with their iPhone and then they realize, I teach them a few things and they get really excited about telling stories with their cameras. So yeah, I've gotten to go to all 7 continents.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I don't even know what my country count is, but I've traveled a lot and photographed so much.
You said something really interesting when we were walking over here to do the recording, when Krista said that you lived a vagabond life for so long, and it sounds like you really loved it. It was very fulfilling. And now you're rooted, no pun intended, well, pun
Pun
intended,
intended.
here at Oflora Flower Farm in, in family land. And so you have, you haven't traveled much at all because you were grounded basically for 2 years.
Yeah.
Bless your heart. You make the
Yeah.
best of it.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm really, it's been such an adventure, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to do something completely new. It's like, so being at the Slow Flower Summit in New York just recently
Yes.
with you, I was just like, wow, this is amazing. It's been 3 years, and I mean, I know so much more. I didn't know anything about the floral industry or about farming or floristry, and it's just amazing what you can learn. And it's been,
If you're curious and you do the work.
yeah, and I'm really proud of that, and it's been great for me. I think it's helped me get through the pandemic for sure. It's also,
I mean, at least you had this
not just a novelty, it's hard work.
Yeah, I was gonna say the physical act of farming is kind of stimulates endorphins and like keeps you maybe your mental health better as well, right? Just from even when you're not sure what tomorrow is going to bring.
Right, and then there's all, of course, the stresses of farming where, you know, I'm enjoying being out in the field, but then suddenly I'm dealing with pests and and crop failures and all of the fun things that come with farming. But I mean, there's something to be said about like trying something totally new.
Well, you are. You I think you probably learned though that you had some of the essential skills to do flower farming well, because you strike me as like you're a total problem solver. Technology doesn't scare you, and visually you know what's aesthetically pleasing. So it all kind of came from that photography training and journalism training you had.
Yeah, I mean the aesthetics do definitely, and then I don't know if I have a green thumb. Obviously I do, but somehow that part seems to be working.
You seem like your baby have a family gardening background as well.
My grandmothers, especially my dad's mom, really loved to garden, and I think she's really the root of why I love flowers, because she always would have like little vases with like just these really artfully simple arranged flowers from her garden, and I always found my happy place coming home in the summers and picking flowers and just arranging and you know finding peace there. And so that's, I think, really the root of where my love of flowers came from.
I mean, I think that everybody has some thread of a universal narrative of where another person influenced you in in some way. Could be your childhood, could be your adulthood, but it's someone opened a door, or a window. You started talking about your online shop and how you have that set up. Can you talk about your markets and well, let's talk about the crops you're focusing on, and then also who you're selling to, and because you are doing this without much help at all, so you had to kind of wear every hat.
Yeah, so I've been doing CSA, so I just call it a subscription. So I've been doing a subscription every season except for this current summer season. So I started with summer of 2020, did fall, spring, summer, fall. Actually, I didn't do fall last year, but I did spring.
The bigger seasons.
Yeah, and then I plan to do fall this year. And then last year I started in the summer to sell to florists. So right now I'm trying to balance still having time to work on my photography career. So my intention is to work on keeping sacred space around March and April, which is our big spring season in Oregon, and into Mother's Day, of course, into May.
And that's going to be your bumper crop.
That's my bumper crop. I'm going to focus heavily on ranunculus, specialty tulips, narcissus, poppies, and some other biennials or hardy annuals in that zone, in that growing period, and just really focus on that for subscriptions and florists, because I find that is a little more controllable, like knowing that time period is generally when I need to be here. So, and I can kind of plant the things in late fall, early winter, and then tend to them, but I don't have to be as present as you do when it's summertime.
Right. I was going to say that, like the crops you mentioned, they're all under like low tunnels or high tunnels, so there is a little bit of a control that a field crop just simply is. You don't have that luxury.
Yeah, and I don't have to worry so much about watering. You know, they maybe need a little bit of water, but if it was something in the summer, I would have to just be physically here and present. So I can add in some of my other work in the off months. And then I haven't been growing as much during this summer, but I've been trying to grow more of less crops and focus more on high value. So as you just saw, I have loads of delphinium coming out my ears, but
They're gorgeous.
I love it because it's high value. The florists go crazy for it. The colors are great. Just feels like light blue is always in need for weddings, and it can dry. So
Yes. So if you don't sell it now, you'll
I
sell
can
it
dry
later.
it. Yeah.
And back to your specialty tulips and your ranunculus and the poppies. There's never enough in the marketplace for locally grown spring flowers, and so I think it's a great strategy for you.
Yeah, I feel like I can grow as many as I can handle, and they will sell. I actually intended to dry a lot more ranunculus, and really didn't hardly dry any because I was able to move them.
Do people come here to pick up from you, or do you deliver?
So the way I distribute my flowers is I offer delivery. It's additional $10 per week for delivery, and I also will give the option of a pickup place in Eugene. So in South Eugene, I partner with a houseplant shop, and so they allow me to use their space as their pickup spot. And the idea is that hopefully they would end up getting some business from my customers. And
Both for your subscriptions and your wholesale, or is it mainly
no.
a subscription?
just a subscription.
Okay.
And then for wholesale, I do deliveries.
Yeah.
Yeah, on certain days of the week. Right now, I'm only doing 1 day a week for florists, and it's sort of when I have things, and they all are aware of.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you started in the deep in the midst of COVID, and kind of have ridden that wave, because it seems like this equally similar narrative has happened for florists. If they hadn't been buying local, they wanted to buy local. So you probably had people coming out of the woodwork who maybe weren't familiar with how to do business with a flower farmer, and they had to learn along with you. And
Yeah. There's been a lot of small designers, small people who are just popping up, and I was catering more to them last year, and this year I've been being a little bit more selective because I'm not growing as much.
Yeah.
And I realize I can't offer to everybody without having to say a lot of no's. So I've been focusing on some primary florists that have been just really big supporters of local. And then if anyone contacts me individually, I'm happy to sell to them, but I've been very inconsistent with offering it to everybody.
I'm just going to make a comment about developing these florist relationships that are, not like you prioritize, but the people kind of emerge that get you. They get your flowers. They value your flowers for the price. You were saying there's somebody who was just taking almost every ranunculus
Yeah.
that she was willing to pay the price that you felt was fair.
Yeah.
That's the perfect customer. You don't have to beg people to buy your flowers.
No, I feel like I haven't had to beg people. And I think being in the Eugene, Springfield area, there's a lot of individual small flower farms. And I think we're all able to fill the niche. And even if we're growing the exact same crop, they're probably not going to be blooming at exactly the
That's a
same
good point.
time. Or we have slightly different colors. And so, I don't feel like we're in competition with each other. I still think the florists have the capability to buy from us all and help sustain us all, which is really nice.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And we all even buy from each other when we need it, and it's really nice. Flower farmers are lovely people. That's what the biggest thing that I've learned.
Yes,
by coming into this industry.
I feel like the community is another kind of surprise for people who are from conventional floristry who maybe haven't experienced that.
Yeah.
And we felt that at the Slow Flower Summit. It was great. Well, I'm seriously interested in hearing about your idea of teaching floral photography. It would be geared toward flower farmers and floral designers?
That's the intention. It would be for both farmers and designers. There would be, bits of both.
Yes.
And the idea would be to teach you to be a better photographer, which, I could teach you that in any medium, but if I'm showing you exactly scenarios that you're going to find useful in your everyday life, that's just going to be much more applicable.
Yeah.
And when you have, as a farmer, I know how limited, as a florist, time is limited, so I want to create this course that is going to be really accessible accessible, won't take a ton of time, and you're just gonna like learn a ton from it.
Yeah.
And I think it would, I mean, it's gonna elevate people's photography, and just bells and light bulbs will go off.
That's so great.
And it's just, sometimes it's very simple things. I think some of it can be technical, and I'm going to try to do 2 different levels. One will be more iPhone photography or phone photography, and the next one, there will be another level that's more mirrorless or DSLR for people who want to learn a little more advanced. But you wouldn't have to plow through all of that information if you're only interested in one or the other.
Or you're going to break it up by topics so that the modules sort of solve one pain point, and then
and I want to do a lot of, I'm such a visual person that I learned I had to see it myself. So I want to do a lot of hands-on in the field scenarios of, look at this setup, look at the light. Okay, now look, we just shifted here and it's better.
Wow.
So like learning how to really,
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest thing with photography is looking at the light. It's not about what camera you have.
I know, isn't that so funny when people ask you what camera you have?
I know.
Do you want to just smack them?
Oh, I'm also like, would you ask a chef what kind of knives they use?
It doesn't make the food better.
Yeah, it's really, and you know, some people like to get hung up on the gear and the technical.
Sure, it's a little bit of a security blanket, right?
Yeah, and you know, there's certain people that hide behind that, but it's really, you can make a good photo with any camera as long as you know its limitations.
And you have to put in the work too, like just the practice and the discipline of you saying that you photograph every subscription that leaves this property.
Yep.
Just even giving yourself that assignment, you probably made some changes in how you were photographing flowers, just because you'd see, oh, this is what people respond to on Instagram.
Yeah, or I just needed to make it easier on myself. So I would make all the bouquets in my studio. I'd put them on a rolling cart, and I'd roll them out to the front of our barn where we have nice open light. And I would do my different setups, take them, then I'd go put them back in the cooler, and it was done. And so then when delivery morning came, I was ready to roll. I didn't have to worry about it. I already had an Instagram post.
Right, I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, like, this is what I'm delivering today.
Exactly. So
Wow.
subscriptions are going out, get people excited.
So people literally would see that before it even came to their front door.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, let's stay in touch on that, because
Yeah.
I do think that there is, we are a visual profession. Consumers respond to, nobody reads anymore, sadly. I mean, you're talking to an editor who can't believe she's saying
when
that.
you're like writing captions for things, and you're like, no one's going to read this. But I still can't help but write a really
I
good
love it when I
caption.
have my editors at Better Homes and Gardens used to always, in every contract, it would say 50-word hardworking 50-word captions for every photo, and I was like, hardworking. I know I'm working hard. I don't exactly know what they mean, but yeah, I think that we're almost to the hashtag bullet point stage now.
Yeah.
But the photo is got the power to really sell those flowers and capture people's imagination.
Yeah,
So,
and the photography can tell the story of your business and your farm, not just the product, but the story, you know,
of place.
What does your farm look like? You know, what is sunrise like? Show me like your zinnia patch, like field rows. Show me yourself. Like,
I love it.
it's a storytelling medium, and I think it can be used really powerfully. And I'm not an advocate of like hiding everything away and making it all pretty and shiny, but I still think that you can always make a better photo in every scenario once you understand how to look at light and how to look at your subject matter and know. You can't, the thing with photography is people will see something interesting and they want to make an interesting photo of that. And they say, how do I make an interesting photo of that? And I'm like, that's not the best thing to pick right now.
Right.
You have to pick something else, or pick something in different light, or you come back at a different time.
Right. Don't try to replicate that.
Yeah.
But use your own environment, your own crops, your own light
Yeah.
to make something that has that
Like,
same
don't force
mood and that feeling. Yeah. How can people learn more? I know I just said something about signing up for your newsletter, because it's not like you're giving out photo tips in your newsletter.
No.
But eventually, when you are ready to launch a class, that's how people will find out about it, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You could email me. I would say email me or go on Instagram and DM me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll put the contact information
Yeah,
in our
and
show notes.
oflorafarms@gmail.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to set you up for lots of questions. I think it would be fun to do it.
And I do have a hidden Instagram that's Oflora Photos, but I haven't been active on it. But that will be where that will be where I start posting tips and promoting the workshop as I get it going.
Yes.
But I've definitely learned you can't farm full time and do
a full-time photography business.
No, you can't. But although I try. I definitely try.
Well, will you share a few photos of some of your favorite flower photos that I could put in the show notes?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, that's a teaser right there. I mean, I feel like just listening to you talk about your discipline of shooting everything and how you mix it up on Instagram. Those are 2 takeaway tips for everyone who's listening today. This has been so much fun, and I'm so glad I got to see you.
Thanks for coming down.
Oh, my
I mean,
pleasure.
I know you didn't come down just to see me. That you came down for a major track and field event.
Yes, but I said to my husband,
it's a great bonus.
I'm not coming to Eugene without seeing people whose farms I want to visit. So it worked out great.
Yeah, you've been working away.
Oh, thank you so much.
While your husband's having fun.
No, I'm going tonight. Going tonight. I'll probably see some world records being broken, but it's just this is such a beautiful community, and there's so many talented, as you said, farmers and florists that it's a beautiful place to be, and I love. It's not that far from Seattle, so we're in the same region.
Yeah.
And I'm just glad that I got to see your delphiniums, which I'm going to go home with you. So, thanks.
Well, thanks for coming.
Thanks so much for joining me today. Check out our show notes at slowflowerspodcast.com for episode 569 to see some of Krista's beautiful photography and for a link to sign up for her newsletter. I showed it on the screen, and she's starting a sign up page for her forthcoming flower photography workshop. You'll be among the first to learn about that when she's ready to launch. We'll also share the replay video there for you to watch this conversation again. Before I go, I also like to thank our sponsors who bring this show to you. This show is brought to you by slowflowers.com, the free online directory to more than 850 florists, shops, and studios who design with local, seasonal, and sustainable flowers, and to the farms that grow those blooms. It's the conscious choice for buying and sending flowers. And thank you to our lead sponsor, Farm Grow Flowers. Farm Grow Flowers delivers iconic burlap wrap bouquets and lush, abundant arrangements to customers across the U.S., supporting U.S. flower farms by purchasing more than $10 million of U.S.-grown, fresh, and seasonal flowers and foliage annually. Discover more at farmgrowflowers.com. Thank you to the Association of Specialty Cut Flower Growers. Formed in 1988, ASCFG was created to educate, unite, and support commercial cut flower growers. Its mission is to help growers produce high-quality floral material and to foster and promote the local availability of that product. Learn more at ascfg.org. Thank you to Red Twig Farms. Based in Johnstown, Ohio, Red Twig Farms is a family-owned farm specializing in peonies, daffodils, tulips, and branches, a popular peony bouquet by mail program, and their Spread the Hope campaign, where customers purchase 10 tulip stems for essential workers and others in their community. Learn more at redtwigfarms.com. And thank you to the Seattle Wholesale Growers Market, a farmer-owned cooperative committed to providing the very best the Pacific Northwest has to offer in cut flowers, foliage, and plants. The Growers Market's mission is to foster a vibrant marketplace that sustains local flower farms and provides top-quality products and services to the local floral industry. Visit them at seattlewholesalegrowersmarket.com. The Slow Flowers Show is a member-supported endeavor, and I value our loyal members and supporters. If you're new to our weekly show or our long-running podcast, check out all of our resources at slowflowersociety.com and consider making a donation to sustain Slow Flowers' ongoing advocacy, education, and outreach activities. You can find the donate button in the column to the right at slowflowerspodcast.com. I'm Deborah Prinzing, host and producer of The Slow Flowers Show and the Slow Flowers Podcast. Next week, you're invited to join me in putting more slow flowers on the table, one stem, one vase at a time. The content and opinions expressed here are either mine alone or those of my guests alone, independent of any podcast sponsor or other person, company, or organization. Thanks so much for joining us today, and I'll see you next week.